Good day, everyone. I'm Cynthia Guzman Morales. I'm a physician with an academic interest in biomedical ethics. I'm based in Cebu City, Philippines, and I'm happy to be here with you all. For the last 10 years, I've been engaging with young medical students as a guest lecturer in one of the local universities. I applaud that university's College of Medicine Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology for initiating their yearly Forum on Human Sexuality. This started in 2011, I believe. And in this forum, we've been discussing hot button issues like the beginning of life, sexuality, and gender identity. Let me describe the scene that takes place one afternoon every year around March or April and sort of bring you into the room with me. So we walk through the hallway, open the door, and enter this huge lecture room. And to our right in the front is an enormous projection screen, technical equipment, and a podium, of course. And to our left, the amphitheater with seats rising all the way up and back, blurring into the shadows in the distance. And there they are, these youthful faces in all modes of the moment. Some of them are lighthearted, even playful, or some of them are pensive, serious. Doctors to be in all flavors, you might say. So the introductions are made, and as our lecture is delivered, and the medical students are listening and looking intently, it strikes us that the reason why we can't seem to make out where the lecture hall ends in the distance is because it doesn't. The lecture hall goes as far beyond as the infinity of the 200 or so minds engaged in this exchange of information and energy. And when these young people leave the lecture hall, what has gone on between the beginning and end of the forum will have ramifications we may not even imagine. And what is this experience like? Well, it's standing before an audience with diverse backgrounds and opinions. You know, it's a mix of local and foreign students, different faiths and denominations. And we discuss the scientific and philosophical facets of current issues. It's like needing to wear bifocal lenses, you know, the bifocal lenses of teacher and parent. We have to be a teacher to them, and yet we feel like a parent to them. You know, these students are young enough to be our children. And we always hope that the ideas presented resonate with them and will trigger an impulse for further reflection or searching or maybe even change. And of course, there are always unexpected or even uncomfortable reactions. And sometimes for lack of time to process things further, well, we just have to go home, eat dinner, and later lie awake in bed at night for a couple of nights, you know, thinking if we were misunderstood or did we explain the issues well, what other questions they have. But all in all, in the end, at the end of the 2-hour lectures and the 3 or so hours of question and answer, we're drained but fulfilled. And actually, we're reluctant to end the session, which feels like it should only be the beginning, because really there's so much to talk about with these wonderful young people. They're intelligent, socially aware, curious, critical-minded. And beneath their questions and reactions, we sense this thirst, you know, a searching into deeper things. And what do we discuss? Well, there are questions and concerns about gender issues and inclusivity, sexuality and morality, abortion and contraception on one hand, and autonomy and self-determination on the other, the sacredness of life on one hand, and the reality of poverty on the other. So we probe into the ethics of artificial reproductive technologies, the definition and arbitration of life and death, and the connection between ethics and faith. Now, one question that was courageously asked by one of the students. It's a question I believe bothers many of them, but they just keep quiet about it. It's this: how do we know what is right or wrong? Well, in the end, that is the ultimate question, isn't it? Whatever the issue may be. And the passion of the students is obvious when we see them standing up for female empowerment. And we see them hurting and confused when gender tender issues come up. And, we have to tell them the truth, gently, of course. We even witness some of them speak up and literally start to cry, to weep in front of the assembly because truth is being attacked or twisted. So these physicians in the bud have keen minds that we ought to respect. And as much as we are obliged in medicine to impart evidence-based information and knowledge, we're likewise obliged to present the whole truth. Many times we may fall into the trap of, science only, when we're in fact trying to understand this embodied spirit, this unity of body and soul, this jewel of creation called man. So we must present, as Pope St. John Paul II has so eloquently expressed, truth in all its splendor. So man is a unified being, and so we reveal him in both his science and in his poetry. And we find that the church's teachings on man, on his dignity, on the sacredness of life, often they're lyrically worded, yes, but they're absolutely founded on the bedrock of science. There's a portion of the lecture where we watch a short film in high definition technology. This film vividly depicts moment by moment, cell by cell, the miracle of life from conception to birth and the seamless transformation of the zygote to the embryo to the fetus, all unmistakably human. And so the facts about the beginning of life serve to illustrate science as witness to the gospel, or science as witness to God's wisdom. There are many paths to God. Being moved by the wonder of life and being human is one such path, I believe. And in the 10 years that we've shown this 12-minute movie on the beginning of life, the reactions of all in the room have been unanimous. Humble, awe, a silent but resounding, yes, life is a miracle. And at that point, when we trace a common beginning and a common finality, life begins, life ends, there is a profound experience of our shared humanity in that room. And it's amazing, how every year teacher and students meet each other for the first time. But at the end of the afternoon, there's a sense of connection. And I believe this is because in those few hours, we open up our minds and hearts in mature conversation about, the deeper things in life. So we'd like to share now 3 insights that have come to us from this experience with the students. First insight is the value of connecting with our youth, the importance of being in the room with them, rather than simply passing each other by or being resigned to the supposed incompatibility of our paradigms. In our proceedings, we start off with a lecture that is followed by an open forum where the students voice out their reactions and questions, and where there is an exchange of ideas. And we notice that all the students are always very engaged in the open forum. So perhaps in real life encounters, our conversations ought not to be lectures alone, but should always have an open forum portion. Everyone has a right and a need to be heard, to sound their own bells. And listening is always a wonderful starting point for working through our differences and perspectives. What comes to mind is the Pope's call and the phrase, bridges of dialogue. Well, bridges take time to build, but we start somewhere and hope that the truths that we present, given time, reflection, and open discussion, will eventually become their reality. Now, I've shared a personal experience that takes place in a medical lecture room, but all of us, whether we're leaders, educators, or parents, I believe have parallel opportunities of being in conversation with young people. It would be good to have continuing connections with each other. There's so much to learn from each side in the generations, and opening up to each other enriches and deepens all of us. Now, the second insight is the appreciation that each individual lives a life, a unique, unrepeatable life that is a history of experiences and decisions. Now, we would like to offer our young ones optimally nurturing experiences. But above that, we would like to equip them with the virtues and the ability to make correct decisions, to launch them onto the lifelong journey of ethical reflection. Now, examining life issues in a forum in one afternoon is an exercise in, yes, knowing what is right and wrong. And yet, theoretical perspectives of life's beginning and end is not the end of the story. When they leave that lecture hall, they're faced with a real challenge. They have to live the between of their lives in the most humanly authentic and fulfilling way. That too takes time, but we hope that each time we talk to them, we're planting somehow, seeds of reflection. We haven't asked our students outright, but we suspect that just like us, they also lie awake in bed at night for at least a couple of days after the forum. So, well, the last insight is the affirmation that humanization is the goal of education. We embrace it as our mission to lead our youth to ask the right questions, the questions that matter, and to search for and find the true answers. To make decisions, never against, but always for life and for love. And when necessary, even if it's painful, to tell them the truth, gently. And this humanization starts with ourselves as leaders, educators, and parents, because indeed, we cannot impart what we do not possess. And most importantly, if the happiness of our youth hinges on their humanization, and if we are sincere and committed to our battle cry of sharing the joy to them, then we must aim for the whole person. And hopefully, by engaging their intellect, will, and emotion, we will lead them to encounter in a real and personal way truth, goodness, beauty himself, who will be their center as they reflect on the beginning and the end in life's lecture room and live the between of their lives. Thank you.